Talking about bears.
Hey everybody, this is Jonathan Lazar. That little cold open brought to you by Angie Carrier with a conversation I don't know that we should be having on this podcast, but we're talking about bears. Well done. Hey, you are listening to another episode of the Perilous podcast. I am your host, Jonathan Latt, and joining me as always in the Bunker of Doom, it's the co-host, it's Angie Carrier.
Hi.
Hey, what's going on?
No,
What we talking about? Talking about bears. Yeah, we're just sitting here. She's showing me Instagram photos of cats, and I'm showing her pictures of naughty license plates.
Yeah.
And you are listening to Lobby Time by Kevin MacLeod. Get all your royalty-free music at Incompetech.com, and we'll be listening to a little more of that on the outro. Smooth transition. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. We know you have a lot of choices in your tinfoil hat shopping needs, and so we appreciate it when you come on by the old Chapel Perilous to listen to the Perilous podcast. This week we are going to be spending a half hour or so talking about one of my favorite topics, and one of the things that I am going to wait to hear what you have to say, and then I will give my opinion. I will give a hint of my opinion. I think it's probably one of the more important UFO, I don't want to call it a case, it's not really a case, but I think it was a very significant and important incident in the UFO world, and that is the story of a man named Bob Lazar.
I'm going to say his name wrong, probably.
That's okay. I know you like saying laser, which would be totally cool. And if he was half as smart as he claims, he totally would have called himself Bob Lazar, but he didn't, and that's unfortunate. So Bob Lazar, who became very, very famous in the late 90s for leaking supposed UFO activity and back engineering. Back engineering is when you take something of advanced technology, or not even advanced technology. People do it all the time. China gets a hold of one of our spy drones or whatever, they take it back to their labs and they back engineer it. They take it apart, they figure out how it works. And so Bob Lazar came forward and claimed to work at a place called Area 51, which basically everybody now knows exists, but at the time...
Was that really the late 90s?
Yeah.
I didn't even look at the timing.
But,
it feels like I've always known about it, but I don't really remember that.
But you've always known about it because it was the late 90s.
But it was late 90s. I was like at least 14.
Well, but again, you're still young.
Yeah, that's true.
And came forward and claimed to have back-engineered UFOs or flying saucers, alien craft at S4, which is a subdivision of the suburb
Sector
of
4, right?
Of Area 51, and gained a lot of notoriety, and he has been believed and not believed and discredited and hunted and whatever.
Yeah.
So I will leave my opinions out of it for the moment, and let's what do you think, Ange? Tell me what you think of young, not so young anymore, Bob Lazar.
Well, yeah. How young was he when he came out?
I think he was in his 30s.
Okay.
Early 30s. Or early 30s, I think.
I mean, I didn't know about him until we started researching Skinwalker Ranch and the Men in Black, because it all could tie together.
Yeah.
Like we mentioned.
Yeah.
But
we're doing Skinwalker next week, and Men in Black after that.
Yeah. What was the other? Denver. Did we mention him? Denver Air Force was that too?
No.
I thought we did.
Now you're just
I was just making it
now
up.
you're just grasping at straws.
Yeah, well, whatever.
It was a strong theory.
Okay.
All right.
So, I was going to do a little backstory on Bob.
Do it. Go for it.
Him. He had a car, a Honda, that he strapped a rocket to, or he was starting to build a rocket, right? Is that how it all began?
Well, he built rocket cars.
Yes.
Yeah,
right.
he's not a Darwin Award winner that just strapped a rocket to the hood of his
That's
car.
honestly what I pictured.
No, he did not just strap a rocket engine to the top of his car and then run it into a wall. No. He actually built rocket cars.
Yeah.
Like, no. Rocket cars that worked and yeah. No matter what people want to say about him, not an idiot.
No.
Yeah.
Wasn't trying to make that distinction, but and then he had I don't remember this guy's name, the father of the hydrogen bomb. Who hired him essentially at Area 51?
I don't know.
I can't remember. Oh, well, didn't somebody read about one of his, like a magazine article about him? Because he was working for, I can't remember anything.
I believe I believe how it actually went was they hired him at Los Alamos.
Yes. So,
and eventually he went to Area 51.
Wasn't that he like reached out to a guy and said, "Hey, I'm looking for a job. Remember how you liked my rocket car
Something
ideas?"
like that.
Yeah.
So like, and I want to say Teller, but I don't.
Teller. There you go.
Oh, it was
there
Teller.
You go.
Oh,
That's
hey.
what
My brain is working.
Yeah, there you go. Not Miles Teller from Baby Driver, but
no.
This Teller. So he
which was a very good movie, by the way.
I didn't see it yet.
It was really good.
Yeah, it's good anyway.
Right.
So reached out to him, says, "Remember my rocket car that you were really interested in? I want a job." And then hired him, and he went to McCarran Airport in Las Vegas, and then they were like, "Hey, you get to go to this cool place."
That's not exactly how it happened. No.
Yeah.
I believe he was hired at Los Alamos and worked at Los Alamos for a while, and then they recruited him.
And then they recruited him.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe. I could be wrong.
I'm just speeding through his story, I guess. Yeah. So, but then he started working on this reverse engineering of these crafts, and he got to see them flying. He thought the government, like, oh, yeah, they have circular aircrafts, like, didn't really realize at first, I think, that they were alien technology, or at least that's the impression I got in some of the articles that I read, that he was like, oh, this is really cool. Oh, wait, this is alien technology that we're going to be working on. Said he went to MIT and Caltech, right, and that's where he studied, and, and then came out talking about all the work that he was doing, and he found element 115. That was the powered the aircraft.
Yeah, the propulsion. The thing that powered which at the time did not exist. Element 115.
Right, which that is an interesting part. Of
which now does exist, but in very small quantities.
Right.
Yeah, like we can make element 115, and there's various configurations of element 115 because we're just slamming atoms together.
Yeah.
But they exist for about 1/10 of a second.
Right.
And so we haven't been able to produce it en masse. Now, sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, the end of that was going to the short summary that I missed things and skipped, but was that he came out and had said all of this stuff had happened, and people went crazy about it, but there's a lot of people who have also debunked him, like Stanley Friedman, allegedly, maybe I should say allegedly debunked him. Stanley
Friedman.
Stanley would have been better.
I know.
I need to start writing down names because I can't remember names. Even
like
my favorite books, I can't remember the characters'
names.
That's
right. That's what I'm here for.
I have word blindness.
So yes, Stanton Friedman.
So it said that he couldn't find any records on him staying at MIT, Caltech.
Yeah. My problem with Stanton Friedman is
he's pompous.
Well, he is a pompous ass.
Yeah.
I don't think he's wrong, but also Stanton Friedman has, more so than anybody else. And again, I think Stanton Friedman, for the most part, is a truth seeker. He wants to know the truth. But he's also prided himself on being the scientist, the nuclear physicist. I'm the man with knowledge. I'm the man. So I think, and there's a huge ego with Stanton Friedman, where I think a lot of his thinking is, why would they ask him and not me?
Yeah.
And I think it's because he's smarter than you.
Yeah.
And not necessarily smarter than you, but he thinks differently than you.
Yeah.
And that's why they recruited him.
Yeah.
And just because Stanton Friedman couldn't find the records, to me, doesn't disprove. And I have a reason why I actually believe.
Yeah.
But do you believe Bob Lazar's story? Do you believe Bob Lazar?
I believe that Bob Lazar believes Bob Lazar.
Okay. Meaning you think he was set up?
That's a possibility. On him, I definitely was on the fence. The first time that I started researching him a while ago, I was like 100% in his camp. I was like, he for sure is telling the truth. Like, this is all real. But I don't really even know what changed about it. Like, just reading over it again, I was like, I think there's some iffiness there. The element 115 thing is very interesting.
Right.
That it didn't exist. He knew about it before it ever existed.
Yeah. A lot of people will say, well, a smart guy would say, well, of course, we'll eventually have element 115. But you can't have it both ways.
No.
He can't be an idiot, he can't be a dupe and a genius.
Yeah.
And it's like what I used to tell people about George W. Bush.
Yeah.
Where I would have my same liberal friends, and I'm, as you know, a liberal.
Yeah.
I'm just not a fucking nutbag.
Right.
Would say, he's so evil and Machiavellian, and then in this next sentence, what a moron. And then it's like, well, you can't have both. Either he's incompetent or he's an evil genius.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as an incompetent evil genius. Yeah. So either Bob Lazar is as smart as he says he is, or he's not. Yeah. You can't have it both ways.
I started thinking about bears again. Sorry.
And here's the thing, everybody. Not thinking about Yogi.
No.
You're thinking about big hairy bear.
Yeah.
Big hairy bear named Philip.
Yep. That is what happened. It just popped into my head. I don't know why George W. Bush inspired that, but...
That's weird. Little something for your therapist.
Yeah.
All right. So you're on the fence. Yeah. Or you don't know that you believe.
Yeah, but I don't actually... But I don't think he's an idiot. And I don't think that he's crazy either. Yeah. So, I mean...
Here's where things get interesting.
Yeah.
For me. And I actually remember this time. You know, my problem with Bob Lazar has nothing to do with Bob Lazar. It has to do with one of the people he's associated with, who I believe he doesn't like, but still likes to hold on to the Bob Lazar association. That's a guy named John Lear. And I think maybe we've touched on John Lear before. John Lear is an accomplished pilot.
Yeah.
His father invented the Lear jet. He supposedly flew for the CIA. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. He probably did. But I hate the people in the UFO community who go, well, you know, because John Lear says insane shit.
Like, I saw UFOs flying from a plane, right?
Well, no. Oh, like, about alien cities on the moon and everything like that. And people believe him because he's John Lear, because he's a pilot, because he flew for the CIA.
Yeah.
It's not how it works. If you're a pilot flying black projects for the CIA, they don't just hand you ultra classified information or whatever and go, here's all the moon shit, buddy. Yeah. I think John Lear is an egomaniac who wants to be more important than he is.
Yeah.
Having said that, no one disputes this, and I apologize, I can't remember the third man's name, but when the Bob Lazar stuff really broke, one of the things that had been happening was Bob had been approached by someone who got him in contact. Bob, I guess, approached a person who was friends with Bob and with John, and then introduced Bob to John. And Bob was taking John Lear and this other guy out to Area 51, or the outskirts of it. To watch, and he was right every time. That, okay, they're going to test this thing at such and such. Now, does that make it an extraterrestrial craft? No. But if you tell somebody they're doing a test flight at the most top secret base in the world at like 9:30 on Tuesday, and you go there, and at 9:30 on Tuesday, shit starts flying over your head, that's a guy who fucking works there.
Yeah.
That's a guy, you know, and he did it consistently. And so I really believe, now also this folds into, okay, I believe Roswell happened. You got to do something with that. So, you know, it is a perfect place to test those sorts of things and back engineer those sorts of things. And I really think, you know, because people will go, well, you know, like Stanton Friedman, who, well, I couldn't find his records. Okay, I am of the opinion that the government can make that shit disappear if they want to. Okay, and they made, and remember, they also got rid of, because he claimed it to work at Los Alamos National Laboratory, a highly secure facility, and there was no information about Bob Lazar originally at Los Alamos. Someone found his name in like an employee phone book thing or something like that. But then also they said, okay, he worked there, but he was like a contractor. He would come in and do little things, and you know,
he wasn't really like in like an adjacent facility or something like that. Yeah.
Here's where, and we've talked about this before, and you know, a lot of the times, because in the end there is no real proof.
Yeah.
It's about who do you trust. Okay. Now, while I don't trust John Lear, and I don't think John Lear is an evil person, I just think he's an egomaniac who wants to be more important than he is, and also at this point might be batshit crazy.
Yeah.
And he had this tangential association with a guy who may have really been in the shit, Bob Lazar. And that led to, you know, I've been on forums with John Lear where he's just insane. He is just insane. But I've also been on forums with another guy, and he wasn't a member of this website. He came in as a guest where members were allowed to ask him questions. And that's George Knapp, who we get into very much in the Skinwalker thing. And I find George Knapp to be very credible. He is a hard newsman. He really, and he's just one of those few guys. He's a local news guy in Nevada, and I think Las Vegas. Yeah, Las Vegas. And for 40 years almost, he's one of the only news guys I have ever seen who can do an investigative story on political corruption, then the next week do a UFO story, and still has his fucking job. I mean, he's credible enough to where not only has he been employed by Class, which I think is the Nevada station, the same station for like 30, 40 years, which means they obviously think he's competent in doing a good job. But he's very credible, and he's very rational. Well, George Knapp believes Bob Lazar. And if George Knapp believes Bob Lazar, to me, that's a lot more credible than John Lear believing George Lazar. But that's not what turned me. So George was telling a story on this website that I used to be a very active member on. My dad passed away. You know, your priorities change and you don't have time to rip bong loads and sit on conspiratorial sites, and plus, anyway. But we were allowed to ask George some questions. And George was telling this story of how he went to Los Alamos with Bob. Now, mind you, this is a couple years, this is 5 or 6 years after the story broke. And so by this time, he never went to MIT, he never went to Caltech. If he worked at Los Alamos, he was a janitor. Nobody knew who he was. So Bob had not been employed by Los Alamos, supposedly, for a long time at this point. He and George show up at Los Alamos. The security guard remembers him. But that's not the crazy thing. Just lets them both walk in. Hey, Bob. Hey, Fred. What are you doing here? I'm just picking up some stuff. All right. So many people go in and out of Los Alamos. So not so many, but you know what I mean. Like 5 years, the fact that the guard not only remembered him, but let him in, means that not to me, means that not only did Bob Lazar work there, he was respected and he was trusted, and that even though after all this bullshit happened, that he can show up with fucking George Knapp a few years later and just walk on. Now, and again, remember, this is not Bob Lazar or John Lear telling me this. This is George Knapp. And I asked him straight out, I said, well, if he never worked there, how the hell did you walk past security? And he said, that's a really good question. So I patted myself on the back. So to me, you know, the whole story with Bob Lazar is interesting and kind of sad, because I think he was an idealistic guy. And I think when he really realized what was going on, I think he's one of the few people that came forward because he thought it was the right thing to do. And again, when he first came forward, he didn't use his real name. He really tried to hide his identity. Things just spiraled out of control, and he had to come forward. He thought to save himself. I think that there had been like threats made against his life or whatever. And you know, again, this was the 90s. Shit was crazy. And, you know, and I could be wrong, I don't think I am, he never wrote a book. After the first year, he never went on the lecture circuit. He didn't make a lot of money off this. He runs a small company that sells scientific supplies to this day. Actually got in trouble with the government for shipping uranium across state lines or something like that. But again, here's a guy who has a license to sell radioactive material. I don't know how all that works, but I find it hard to believe that licenses like that are handed out easily. You have to show some sort of competence.
Yeah.
And if you're the crazy guy who lied about working for a government facility, I don't know that they hand you that license.
Yeah.
I'm not saying the government handed him the license to make it up to him. I'm saying he's qualified to do that stuff.
Right.
And I don't know that somebody that didn't graduate college would get that license.
Very true.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Now, again, from everything I know, I don't think Bob's ever been able to prove that he graduated from these places, but it just, there's some contradictory stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing is, and you get back to element 115, and there's other stuff that he talked about that to me, I believe him. I think he worked there. I think he worked on back engineered craft.
Mm-hmm.
I think, he came forward for the best of intentions, and I think he regrets it.
Well, yeah, I mean, they tried to make him look like a crazy lunatic, like 100%, so...
And a liar.
Yeah, a huge liar.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, he's not trying to be on all those UFO shows on the History Channel.
No.
So.
No, he's not. And I think he came out on, maybe it was the 25th or something anniversary of the whole story, and he came out with George Knapp in Nevada and talked for like an hour, but you could tell he didn't want to be there. I think he was doing it as a favor to George.
Yeah.
But I know him and George are still friends, and I think he is very, very smart, and I think if Area 51 chose him, and the reason they chose him is because he was a thinker outside the box, and that it's one of those situations where you want someone who thinks differently when you're back engineering an alien craft. But also, I am not disposed to agreeing with those who say he was chosen because they knew he'd go public. And because he had, look, they put all these people through a psychological evaluation. And if they're not really UFOs, if you can make a guy believe they are UFOs and he's going to leak it, it's great. If you're actually just doing secret projects that, as we've discussed in a previous podcast, the government is anywhere from 20 to 60 years ahead.
Yeah.
In 1995 or 6, when he was working there, I believe, I could be wrong, but it was certainly the 90s. Imagine the technology back then. We barely had cell phones.
Yeah. Car phones.
Yeah. And still dial-up. No smartphones. Cell phones were analog. They weren't digital. So what would something 60 to 80 years more advanced than the technology we have, what the fuck would that look like?
Right.
To a guy in the 90s. Now, again, I like to keep an open mind. It could very well be just highly advanced craft that we've been working on. But I think it was, Roswell debris and other stuff. And we can get into more of those cases as we continue to record. And I think they brought him in because he was an outside-the-box thinker. And I think he saw this stuff and was like, this is insane.
Yeah.
And... yeah, I think, and again, I don't think he meant to be a whistleblower. I think he just told a buddy, and the buddy told John Lear, and they went out to watch these things fly. And I think it was John Lear that wanted to make things go public for the fame and whatever. I don't know about the money, but
well, I guess.
But I mean, and look, and in the end, look, if nobody's a millionaire on the UFO circuit, but you can make a good living.
Yeah.
You can make a good living. So why didn't Bob? If that's what he was after, he just wants to be left the fuck alone. Yeah. So I believe 100% that he worked at Area 51. He worked at Los Alamos in a pretty good capacity. Did he graduate MIT? I don't know. But he's not a fucking moron.
Yeah. Might not have needed to graduate.
Huh?
He might not have needed to graduate.
No.
Yeah. Why do you think that he felt like he had to come forward?
Well, that's the thing. Remember, he didn't call a press conference. He told a buddy.
Yeah.
I think it was like, you want to see something really cool?
Yeah.
And I think it got out of control.
Yeah.
I don't think he meant to, I should make that clear. I think he came forward more like, dude,
this is awesome.
check this out.
Yeah.
and I think it spiraled out of control.
Yeah,
I
I
think
have
it's-
trouble with NDAs. I always want to tell cool shit.
Yeah, I have
Like
signed.
all the UFOs I have.
I have signed so many NDAs, and it's so tough because so many people have asked me what I've worked on, and I can't tell them.
Yeah.
Some of these NDAs are fucking 30 years.
Yeah,
What's the longest NDA you signed?
I don't know about length, but when I worked at Imagineering and R&D for Disney, I signed 7 different NDAs that were like, so I just don't talk about anything because it's, I mean, I don't even remember everything that's in there, so I was like, that's good.
So what do you think? You said you.
I don't know.
Have I swayed you again?
Yeah, I mean, you always do, but I mean, I like him. I think he's a nice guy, so I want to believe him.
Yeah, he seems like he seems like a
that
decent
doesn't mean
guy.
anything.
No, but he seems. Look, there are certain people. Look, again, I compare him, and again, I have nothing against Stanton Friedman.
Yeah.
I really don't. But when you compare Stanton Friedman to Bob Lazar, one man is very vested in being the science guy in the UFO community. And one man wants to be left the fuck alone. You know, so I think Stanton has way more motivation to discredit Bob Lazar than the truth.
Yeah.
And I think it has a lot to do with ego.
Yeah.
Yeah. But a guy like George Knapp believes him, and I'm sorry, that's basically good enough for me.
You just love George Knapp.
I do. I really respect him. I really do.
Yeah.
I don't know the man. We've talked a couple of times. He wouldn't know me from Adam. I doubt he would even remember talking to me.
Right.
We exchanged some emails back and forth, George Knapp and I, on various things. It was always very nice. Always received my insights very well. But again, does not know me.
Yeah.
Would not know me.
Yeah.
Would not remember me. But a guy who I think has a lot of integrity.
Yeah.
So that's what sways me with Bob.
Yeah.
You know.
I like it.
Yeah. So you remain on the fence?
Yeah. I mean, I think, again, like I said, I don't.
Sorry, that's the chair. I'm not farting.
Yeah, right. I think. Yeah. I think he's not crazy, and I think he's smart. So I mean, I'm more inclined to believe him. I don't see why.
But do you think he's a liar?
No, because I don't think that he intended to lie. If anything, yeah, he maybe believed something that wasn't true.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I believe him.
Yeah.
You think he's a good person?
Yeah.
All right.
Sure.
All right. What do you people think? I know most people at this point think he's full of shit, but I think they're not looking at it accurately. I do.
think you're wrong.
Huh?
I said, but you think they're wrong.
They are. The only reason I think they're wrong is because they are.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm sure they're all very nice people.
Yeah.
So, well, okay. So you are on the fence.
Sure.
Fair enough. I am a true believer in Bob Lazar.
The fence that surrounds Area 51.
That's right. And but leave Bob Lazar alone. He really wants to be left the fuck alone. So listen, everybody, you have wasted another half hour of your time listening to the Perilous podcast. As always, I have been your host, Jonathan Lett. My co-host has been Angie Carrier. Thanks for coming by.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Okay. For all of you listening, Angie just started waving at the camera. So go to my website, jonathanlatt.com. Links to YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, my Goodreads page. Buy my book so I don't have to get a real job. It's The Geek. If you like hard-boiled pulp novels filled with death and sex and piles of dead hookers and terrible people doing terrible things, you're really going to love this book. You're really going to love this book. It's a lot like the Bridges of Madison County, with just a little less kinky sex.
A little less Meryl Streep.
Yeah, you know. Well, there you go. So, and you are listening to Lobby Time by Kevin MacLeod. Get all your royalty-free music at incompetech.com. All right, thanks for coming by, Andy.
Bears.
Bears. Talking about bears. Talking about bears. This is really good music for singing about bears.
Yeah. It's like, I can't hear it.
Singing about bears.
talking about bears.